Steve Sarkisian had a really interesting quote about development today, and I want to tell you about it after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kid folk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Today, I want to talk about Steve Sarkisian, who was made available for the lead up to the College Football Playoff National Championship on Monday. Today, on Wednesday, talked for about 15 minutes and went through a gamut of things like Jalen Waddle looked good at practice. There's a chance that he probably play on Monday. We'll see what happens with that. We'll see what Coach Saban has to say about it. I say Coach Saban. Nick Saban has to say about that tomorrow. But also, he was talking about what it was like for him this week, being the head coach of Texas, but also being the coordinator at Alabama. And he says, my game week hasn't really changed. I've gone through game week the same way that I've gone through game week since being the offensive coordinator at Alabama. He did say, however, any downtime he has spent trying to get acclimated to his new gig as the head coach at the University of Texas. And there's all sorts of reports about who he is trying to hire and who he has hired to help him turn Texas around. But I thought one of the things that he had to say about the 4- and 5-star players that Alabama and Ohio State recruit is just how good they are at developing them. And I'm going to look over here at the monitor to read this quote in its entirety to you because I think it's really good. And then thirdly, I think one of the misnomers is that Alabama and Ohio State are the only ones that signed 4- and 5-star players. Clearly, we do, but I also think there's a piece of development that sometimes gets lost. Yes, we recruit good players coming out of high school, but then there's a developmental piece that's needed to develop that player throughout his time and throughout his career in college. So I think clearly both programs do that extremely well. And that was in response to a question that began with, what does it take for a program to recruit at the level you guys have done over the last few years? So, man, check that out. Setting it up for what I have been discussing, what many have been discussing about the University of Texas, which is you have all the resources, you have all the money, you have great talent in state, you just have to develop it. And I wrote about Steve Sarkisian taking this job and why it did not work out for Tom Herman over at Fox Sports. And the thing that I point to is Tom Herman lost the team. But if you had beaten Oklahoma, perhaps it's a little bit different. More than that, if you had developed first-round talent at Texas, I think that people would believe in what you can do in the future. Texas hadn't had a first-round draft pick since 2013, okay? Take into account Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Tua Tagovailoa, Jedrick Wills. Dudes were all drafted in the first round last year at Alabama last year alone. Those are the kind of products that you want Texas to have. That's what you want to see Steve Sarkisian get done at the University of Texas. And being able to nail that at a press conference just days before you play in the national championship game is actually remarkable for me because it means that Sarkisian is listening to what the fan base wants to hear from him and what he already believes is a big deal when it comes to taking over the job at a place like Texas and how Ohio State and Alabama have got to be so good so quickly and for so long, right? And I say so quickly. When I say so quickly, I mean, take a look at how these classes have turned out, right? If I told you that Texas had a top 5 recruiting class in 2019 and then didn't manage to put together a 10-win season in 2 years, you'd have questions. I tell you about this 2017 Alabama recruiting class, and it is remarkable what they have accomplished. I tell you about this Ohio State 2017, 2018, 2019 recruiting class. It's remarkable what they have accomplished. And I believe that this Alabama class, this 2017 class, could be one of the best ever at any one school. If Sarkisian can take that magic from Alabama and make it work at Texas, Texas becomes the empire, right? That's what we're looking at here. They are the living, breathing Death Star of college football. Also in there, we need to really think about what it's going to take for Steve Sarkisian to get the level of talent developed that he did at, say, USC, right? When you had Reggie Bush, Lindell White, and Matt Leinart. I don't know. I do know this, though. He's been around some really talented players. Not just these at Alabama, Tua Tagovailoa, Mac Jones, Najee Harris, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, but also in the NFL with, Matty Ice and Julio Jones, among others. Really interested to see how this ends up going for him, but I thought it was worth putting in front of you that he knows exactly what the job is at Texas. He also is pointing to what they have been able to do at Alabama and what he has ascertained from watching Ohio State, and it's all about developing the talent once you recruit the talent. I have no doubt that Texas is going to be able to put together top 5 recruiting classes in the future with Steve Sarkisian as the head coach. His being able to develop those is going to be something else entirely. I don't say this lightly either. You're going to need a crack strength and conditioning team. You're going to need a crack strength and conditioning coach. I mean, Scott Cochran was ridiculously good at Alabama. And now they went and they hired a doctor and a coach to run their strength and conditioning at Alabama when he took the job at Georgia. You cannot undersell how big a deal it is to have a Tommy Moffitt on staff for you, right? How big it is to have a Jerry Schmidt on staff for you. I think that's going to be a tremendous part of their development. It's not just going to be what they do in drills and how they execute their offenses and defenses. It is going to be making the bigger, faster dudes continue to be bigger, faster dudes in college who become bigger, faster dudes in the NFL. That, I think, has been the sauce for Alabama outside of what Nick Saban can control. He has had dynamic strength conditioning coaches who can get results out of these players and make them tremendous assets to the program. All right, that's it for me. Deuces.